What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 134, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name is Meowth, and as usual, I'm joined by my two good friends and co-hosts, Roffle and Corbett. Guys, how you doing tonight?
You know, I'm doing good. I just returned from a short vacation. I was feeling well rested, but then I had to do a lot of work today to try and catch back up. So yeah, it was still had a good time and was still absolutely worth.
See, I'm doing the exact opposite, Roffle. I went away for the weekend and I got no rest, and I was having late nights and no sleep, and now I'm getting well rested. So
well, there were late nights. There's just plenty of sleep after the fact.
I can't relate. Sorry, but yeah, happy to be back with you guys as well.
Yeah. All right. Before we go any further, we have to stop and we have to congratulate Corb on his new digs. New co-host of the Vicious Syndicate podcast. For those of you guys that don't know what that is, that's basically our stuff, but like good and standard and data driven. So yeah, congrats, Corb, on the new gig.
Thank you. I know that whenever you have to throw questions to me on standard, I do my best, but I just figure right now I can get all the inside source. That way, it's all preparing for the State of Wild podcast. Everything, I swear.
Yeah, so you're telling us that that recording is just a practice run for the State of Wild is really what you're getting at.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only reason.
Yeah, State of Wild more important. You heard it from here first.
But yeah, it won't affect this show. And for the people that do want more wild content on the VS report, I don't believe that's going to be happening. It's going to be continuing, trying to be pretty seamless. But yeah, there shouldn't be too much of a change. A lot of podcasting gigs opened up, man, with Ridiculous Hat going to Team 5. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, so if you're a budding podcaster, now's your chance. But Hat is going to be difficult to replace, but I don't think that it's they could have found a better new co-host than Corb for you. So congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right. No more kind words for Corb because we're gonna make him, start doing the data-driven analysis right off the bat here. So Corb, let's go ahead and just hop into. Let's talk about some wild. Let's talk about. You had a tier list that you put out, I'm assuming based upon what little stats you could gather. So do you want to, walk the listeners through what you think, the meta looks like right now?
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of mostly based on high MMR stuff. Some of it's data, some of it's just also just playing, but it's mostly data driven from what I could see. Yeah, right now there's kind of a lot of competitive stuff, but I think the one standout deck is Druid. Which is a funny position. So, Questline Druid looks like far and away the best deck. And Meowth has helped keep pushing that with the new Arcane Giants build, which I think has been very impressive just preliminarily. There's no real stats on it, but I've been playing it. I've been playing against it. Seeing other people play it. It seems really good. 0 mana cards. Strong.
Who would have thought?
0 mana cards that you can copy to get 2 0 mana cards. Very good.
I mean, 0 times 0, 0 times 2 has to be, twice as good, right? That's math.
Yeah. And then the game collapses in on itself.
Yeah. Apart from Questline Druid, there's a lot of other stuff that we have, a lot of the same faces mostly, where, we have even Shaman Beast Hunter, the pirate decks. Those are really strong aggro decks are strong. Shocker. But, in terms of some other stuff, Questline Demon Hunter is a deck that has definitely seemed quite solid. I haven't really had the chance to dip into it too much personally, but I'm seeing a lot of that pop up. Big Priest is now a lot better as well, which is both a function of what the meta is now, where because you do have decks like Questline Druid, Taunt good. Basically, it's hard to punch through an infinite wall of Bloody Cahoons, but also Love Everlasting, very strong addition. So yeah, Big Priest is kind of at its best, or it's for some time now. And then Shadowwalk and Kingsbane, they feel very, very influential, but not actually entirely sure how good they'll be. I don't know. I think a lot of people really want to play these decks, but we'll see whether that lasts long term, because I think both decks do kind of struggle into some of what you're seeing in the other top tier competitive stuff. But overall, format's pretty aggressive. That's usually the way it goes. I think Questline Druid's the best deck. People probably don't want to play it that much. Not a shocker, but a lot of options, I think, still, if you want to be dabbling in wild.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Kingsbane being something that people want to play, and that to me makes sense just given the like high density of new cards that the deck is seeing play. It also like even when it was not a good deck, but like still a deck that was like marginally competitive, it had a bit of a cult following that people really liked playing it, even at times when it wasn't necessarily the best option. We saw it come back with people wanting to shove Renethal in it, and like even prior to some of the new card releases. So, like that's not terribly surprising that it's more popular than it is successful because that's how the deck has gone. I think that it's at its core just maybe like a less good, more fragile version of the Questline Druid, which I think is maybe why it's a little bit out class. That matchup certainly isn't good. It's probably equally, if not weaker, to taunt minions, just because like you have to give up weapon charges or attacks for a turn if you want to clear taunts in order to get to face with either Doomerang or Blade Flurry. Both of those are going to spend a significant amount of mana and or basically just time to get through the taunts, whereas Druid has the more staying power, so it gets hurt by taunts, but like it has more gas to go.
And I don't know about you, Roffle, but there's a lot of my stick now running around in the format.
There sure is. There sure is. I don't see how that possibly wins games because like by turn 5, doesn't Kingsbane just kind of have enough juice to get across with the dagger? or aren't you already dead by the time that card comes out? If you like, I've been seeing a lot of people shove it into ETC, but then you have to play an ETC and a sticky finger and somehow win that video game. Which I don't know how people are pulling that off unless it's into bad builds or bad draws.
Yeah. There's a very visceral reaction to Kingsman Rogue, very much like similar to Secret Mage, where people play the worst cards in order to beat them, even though they are terrible cards. I've seen a lot of ETCs as well in the Kingsbane Rogues. My favorite one is getting the Zeph out of the ETC against the Kingsbane Rogue and losing to like what is it called, the Demon Hunter +8 attack, Inner Demon, I think it is, out of the Zeph from an ETC. So yeah, I don't know. People are doing whack things. I don't know. Simple advice, right? Just don't put bad cards in your deck and play the good cards instead, and your win rate will go up. Even if you do lose maybe a game or two against Kingsbane, you'll also win a lot more.
You're asking wild players not to innovate and improve on established decks. So
no, I'm asking them to innovate by not putting bad cards in their deck. It's a new thing that wild players should try. So
yeah, innovating is what Meowth did with the Questline Druid in adding things like the Frostwolf Matriarch and Arcane Giants paired with the Oracle of Elune to not only apply pressure through the through like the attacks that you're doing with Questline Druid, but through the board state as well. And that actually looks very interesting. To me, it looks pretty powerful. You've got a lot of spells in the early game, and then you just kind of get the payoff from things like the bees to get the matriarch down, and then like just the spells that you're playing for the Arcane Giant. It looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, I am willing to admit that 66% of the cards that you mentioned probably aren't good in Questline Druid. I think the Oracles are cute. Like Arcane Giants are good. I wouldn't run those over the Matriarchs because Matriarchs make you run, I think, not great cards. But the Oracles are cute and they help a lot in the mirror because more threats in the mirror that they have to deal with usually is better because I find myself running out of gas a lot. But they can like cost you a little bit against aggro where like something like a Moon Touch or a Feral Rage would be better. So like I'm running basically Corb's list that he like has been playing the last couple of days with the Arcane Giants. I have been playing 2 Oracles just because I've been seeing a fair bit of mirrors when I've been climbing and they help in the mirrors. But yeah, don't play the Matriarchs and stuff. Even though it's fun
you can't stop me.
That's fair. I couldn't stop myself because it gave me Beast Druid vibes, and those were some of my favorite days. But yeah, the Arcane Giants. I got a little bit lost in the sauce, and then we found the secret ingredient with the Arcane Giants, and it turns out those are pretty good. Zero-Man
Well,
8/8s. Who goes
yeah,
on?
you had to get lost in order to find the way with the arcane giants. So, now I think last week it was Corb was talking about breakdance and arcane giants in Kingsman Rogue. Is there any indication as to whether or not that's going to be taken off, or are we?
Um,
Can we make these decks more similar?
yes, that's important. There's still like people aren't really doing that too much. Like, I haven't seen too much. People are so focused on like these Garrote Rogue, like Garrote packages in the Kingsbane, but I really do think there is something there, probably with a more Miracle-esque style deck. But I haven't personally given it too much of a crack yet. I'll probably get around to sometime soon, but I'm not seeing anything just yet.
Yeah, I have seen people playing like Miracle Rogue with Arcane Giants and Breakdance, but they're not really running the Kingsbane stuff. It's just Giants and Edwins. But I'm still kind of on the boat. I haven't played too much of it myself either, but I'm on the boat where like maybe just playing Arcane Giants regardless in Kingsbane, whether you're doing the Breakdance stuff or not. It can't be that bad. We're reaching the point where Arcane Giants seem like super playable with a lot of decks, which is kind of a good thing and also kind of a scary thing. Where it's like super easy to play 0-mana 8/8s in a lot of classes by turn 4 or 5. So
Yeah, the only time I've encountered it was against an opponent earlier today, where I assume they were playing the Arcane Giant because they definitely played a breakdance, but they had the unfortunate experience of playing a breakdance on an instrument tech, and that I can't imagine felt good. They were just desperately trying to clear my minions, and then they died. So yeah, it's like I could definitely see a world where maybe the Arcane Giant's good, breakdance bad. Is kind of like you were talking about with the requiring the cards to interact together and draw them at the same time is kind of a big ask. So it's kind of like the situation you mentioned with the Oracle of Balloon in Questline Druid, where Giant's good, maybe Oracle not so much.
And just on Instrument Tech, that card has been fantastic in Beast Hunter. It looks so good in the deck. I don't know if you go to 2, like the one of is performing exceptionally well, so maybe you even pushed to 2, but unsure. But yeah, that's actually been a big deal for Beast Hunter recently.
So I assume that's just to fetch the harpoon gun. Would you bring in some copium if you wanted to run the second copy, or are you just better off with like the Stranglethorn Heart at the top end?
I think it's probably better to just go like just the harpoon guns with the 1 tech. But I have heard people do the same thing where they have the 2 techs and the third weapon as well. Feels probably a little unnecessary. I actually like the Stranglethorn. I think that card is performing okay. So
yeah, I feel like for that top end finisher, Cope had always been pretty disappointing for me. So like adding a second or adding 2 cards to the deck is subbing out 2 potential good cards for some disappointing cards. Whereas I could see, I haven't tried the Stranglethorn Heart in Beast Hunter, but I could very easily see that being a stronger late game win condition than a 6-mana weapon. Like it's just so slow developing. It feels rough every time I've tried to force it into Beast Hunter.
yeah, I love Stranglethorn Heart. I think that card is really good in Beast Hunter. I think the fact that it allows you to tempo out your 5-drop minions in control matchups is one of the most underrated aspects of that card. Of like, yeah, it's just a 1-card win con, but it also like opens up so many other avenues of winning the game by allowing you to tempo a Tundra Rhino and things like that, and just like threaten to kill them unless they answer this 2/5. I will say, like, while we're on the topic of Beast Hunter, I love Tavish. I love the boy. I'm kind of on the maybe we cut Tavish train and maybe like put in Moocula or maybe the second instrument tech or something, because I know he's been really good in the past, but like now that they've diluted his pool, I feel like I never hit what I want, and it's made me a little bit sad. It makes me want to like tilt cut him from the deck. I don't know if you like have any early indication on how good that card still is.
I think he's still good. It probably does mean that like there were situations where you could just blind keep him like on the coin against Pirate Rogue, because the plan was always just like coin Tavish explosive, like GG a lot of the time. Don't do that anymore. Like you can't bank on that. Like learning that the hard way. But I do think he's still quite strong. Like he's a hero card. His secrets aren't amazing, but he does so much in those slower matchups, and he's just like, in games where you don't have like the perfect buzzard pop off, having that kind of grinder for a handful of turns can actually be like such a big deal. So yeah, I think he's still good. Just way more frustrating.
Yeah, part of the reason I ask is I need to find room to put Moocula in, because right now I don't have room for the Moocula, and I still think he's a good card. He's a little bit expensive, and he kind of fills the same role as Tavish, I feel like. And so if you tell me that Tavish is bad, he's instantly out, and I'm putting the monkey back in.
I need to try the monkey. I haven't tried the monkey yet, because for like you, I'm just like, I don't know how to fit this card in the deck. I mean, he's a big boy. It's hard to get him in there. But we need to try it, because 4 mana Moocula, I mean, that will end it. That's a huge minion for 4 mana.
Yeah. The fact that I opened both of them golden out of my pre-release or pre-order thing has nothing to do with this at all.
No.
But, but yeah, I love that Beast Hunter's so good. It's circling back around to Questline Druid. It is kind of crazy to me that this quest that when it came out we all kind of laughed at is like 2 years later the best deck in the format, it's just funny to me.
I mean, it was competitive even when it was released, or definitely exceeded everyone's expectations on release. It's like popped up here and there. Like, it does a pretty good job of just addressing some of Druid's like struggles against hyper aggro by just ignoring the board and going face, because like Druid can't clear stuff, so just gain a bunch of armor and like race them down, and it's a pretty effective strategy. Like, a lot of the decks that Corb listed were, pretty aggressive decks that aren't running a lot of taunt minions, and that can kind of present problems or present an opening rather for Questline Druid.
Yeah, I mean, you just get a bonus 10 health. It's like the only deck in the format that gets to play pre-nerf Renathal.
What if we put Renathal in our Questline Druids? Then you get the 10 on top of Renathal.
Let's ease on the cooking, all right? We learned from the Matriarch incident.
All right, my bad. All right. On the topic of Questline Druid being the best deck in the format, can we talk about Rake? And as the standard representative now, as the host of the Vicious Syndicate podcast, can you please explain to us how standard hasn't gotten this card nerfed yet? Because this card feels like better than multi-strike, because you don't have to take the damage. Like, this card is so good.
There's a lot of synergy now that exists in Wild for Druid with this card that isn't really in Standard. They've rotated the quest line, a lot of that kind of stuff is gone. But yeah, Rake's so efficient. I don't expect it to get nerfed anytime soon. It did come out also like as a later card in the expansion, so it doesn't have that much time left in Standard either. So it's not something that I think that would ever change. But yeah, it's so good, and just like core forever, in Druid decks.
Yeah, like, I mean, it along with I think maybe only Harmonic Mood was just getting shoved into early versions of the full-on ramp Druid that didn't have it wasn't the hybrid quest line. It didn't have a whole lot of the attack synergies. It's just like, well, Rake is a good card, so we run Rake now in all of our Druid decks. And I mentioned that Druid doesn't have any removal, but like, it's pretty efficient removal, like you said, Meowth. It just kind of it has a job, and it does it extraordinarily well for 1 mana.
Yeah, it does too many things for a 1 mana card. Okay, let's talk about countering Questline Druid. Is there anybody out there that's busting out Call to Arms? I saw Roffle doing it earlier today, but I don't know. Anoyatrons and Righteous Protectors seem pretty good against Questline Druid. Where's all the Tax Paladin players out there?
Yeah, I was playing a very poorly assembled set of cards, but it included Call to Arms with Righteous Protector and Anoyatron. So I just didn't really lose to Kingsman Rogue and didn't encounter any Questline Druid, but I imagine the experience would be pretty similar, especially with like unnerfed Conviction. I think that this is a deck that's probably not great into a lot of the rest of the format. It is miserable playing against any type of shaman. But if you're encountering both Kingsbane Rogue and Questline Druid, or if you simply just want to beat Questline or Miracle Rogue, it's Kingsbane Rogue. That's the one. If you're one of those people that keeps shoving Sticky Finger into all of your deck, don't do that. Just play a Call to Arms Paladin, and you're probably have a greater success rate at frustrating Kingsbane. Basically, you just kind of like do what do what Questline Druid does, and you ignore their board and just go face, and then let the taunts do their work. Sometimes you have to trade into a sticky finger, but like that's easy enough to do. You let the conviction act as a 1-mana fireball, and the opponent's hero explodes while you're at a pretty healthy life total. Like the divine shield on the taunts is particularly annoying, just because of like Blade Flurry doesn't solve it. So you don't have a good answer to, like, this is why somebody used breakdance on an instrument tech. That's how desperate they were to like try and clear some of the divine shield taunts. So I think it's probably good for the specific matchup. Probably I would be surprised if, like, the other problem is not just even shaman, but Shudderwalk shaman is horrendously bad for that deck unless you're running a fair number of chargers, which I wasn't. So I think that if we see a increase in popularity for both Questline Druid and Kingsbane, Kingsbane probably doesn't need to increase in popularity. If we start seeing Questline Druid trickle down, you might consider bringing out the Call to Arms Paladin.
Were you boogieing down, Roffle?
No, I was not actually, but I saw no need to do so. I was just I wasn't running enough because my build was bad. I wasn't running enough 1s and 2s, so like Call to Arms was simply enough, and I am simply skilled enough to draw it on curve every game. Or, at times when I was running real hot, I would just draw both copies on the coin and really make people miserable. So, really what I'm trying to say here is get good and try and approach my level of drawing cards.
Instead of putting sticky fingers in your deck, just get good.
Yeah.
Wise words of wisdom from Roffle here. I don't know. Or wait, Corb, are you hinting at people should be playing Boogie Down and Call to Arms in the same deck?
Oh, I don't know about that. Like I was curious. I mean, I'm not sure if Boogie Down is the move.
Yeah, it would be like you would probably need a higher density of 1-drops than you would want to run in a Call to Arms deck. And so I don't know if it would work out quite as well, but it would. I don't know. It would make it easier to stick a conviction, which is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other options that you kind of have if you want to do Questline Druid countering, like I believe mech decks are probably not a bad way to go about it. Like both Mech Paladin and Mech Mage. I felt like Beast Hunter was actually quite good into that matchup, but then once the Arcane Giants have been added, now I don't know how that goes anymore. Beast Hunter doesn't really like big swing turns, and 0-mana 8/8s coming down makes her a pretty decent swing turn. I think like even Shaman as well is probably like quite good into Druid, especially if you run it with the like the Cold Neophytes. That should be a reasonable option as well. But yeah, those are probably the main ones that I can think of.
Is there a world where like a Warsong Warrior can get there just by tanking up with the first skipper, thanks to the new Quillbore, into like, I don't care how much health you have, it's always lethal?
I mean, it seems possible, but at the same time, Skipper Warrior doesn't have great removal, like for the most part. It does have the skipper turns, but it doesn't do great against like the mid-size and big things that well. And Questline Druid is probably actually going to out-armor like a lot of the damage range, unless you're doing something very stupid in terms of how much OTKing you could doing. Yeah, you don't have like that much in the tank, right? For like a Questline Druid getting up to like 60, 70 health. So, I don't know.
I don't know. I've done it.
You've done, yeah. Maybe it's because I've been playing more Worgen than Frothing. Like,
yeah, the Frothings get up there really quickly, and I know that people, now that Voon is unnerfed, people are like a little bit more justified in running something like Target Dummy just as a damage amplifier. I haven't tried it yet, and I'm still kind of skeptical. I still see Voon as just a way to fetch a third copy of Skipper because of how important the card is. How about a Questline Demon Hunter, since they're running the Brutes? Is that ever going to get online fast enough to to finish the game?
That matchup has felt very close to me. The glides can be very annoying with what you're doing there. But yeah, Sometimes they glide and they play brutes on 3. Sometimes they don't do that and you just summon like enough taunt because they're so limited on threats. Is that like you only have to deal with a couple and all of a sudden the game's kind of over for the Demon Hunter. So that matchup definitely feels close. Man, I did forget like how tilting glide could be in the format. It's been a long time as a wild player.
Yeah, I've played both as and against that deck quite a bit, and it is very, very feast or famine in just about any matchup. And like sometimes the philosophies can be a little bit frustrating. Like sometimes you need a brute and you get the walloper and you're stuck with that for a while, and then other times the exact opposite is true. So the deck clearly is performing reasonably well, but like can be frustrating at times just because of like the variance associated with like a super draw dependent deck like that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's either the best deck in the format or just like not very good at all. You know, it's one of the more extreme versions of that right now that we have, I think.
Okay, can I just butt in for 2 seconds? So for the listeners that might not know what Questline Demon Hunter is compared to like normal Outcast Demon Hunter or like an OTK Demon Hunter, they might not be like super in tune with the Reddit posts and decks like that. Do you mind just like running through kind of what the main, I don't want to say gimmick, but like the main thing that it's different, you know, based upon like the normal Outcast Demon Hunter builds that might be seeing?
Yeah, I mean the gimmick is that you're playing the quest line. So you play the quest line. It means that when you draw a lot of your cards, your hand gets discounted, and a big payoff for that is the Ire Bound Brute, which is the 7-mana 6/7 taunt that costs 1 less for every card that you've drawn that turn. So that with philosophy means that you can get some pretty big boys down like very, very quickly, especially if you play Glide, your entire hand gets discounted, you keep drawing cards, and then all of a sudden it's like turn 3 and you have like multiple massive taunts. There's often Tony is also included in the deck as sort of a finisher where you can, once you've drawn through all of your deck, you play Tony and then you start drawing through all the opponent's deck, and that's kind of a cute way to be disruptive and things like that. But yeah, ultimately between like Mana Burn, Glide, Tony, the deck is fairly disruptive. It can have these explosive early game turns, but sometimes your cards are in just the wrong place in your hand and you just pass for the first like 3 or 4 turns. And that's kind of what Roffle was really talking about in terms of the feast and famine nature of the list.
Yeah. Do we think it's more feast or famine than like normal Outcast Demon Hunter?
It's much faster when it pops off. Like it's way more crushing when it.
But the Outcast Demon Hunter is like more consistent at doing the walloper thing, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's the normal Outcast is more what you would expect from a normal wild aggro deck, whereas this is more like, it feels more like a Miracle Rogue type, like super explosive when it pops.
Yeah, I think Tony is probably bait in the deck, having played it quite a bit. I played it exactly once. I stole exactly Kingsbane and then into Secret Passage just because it happened to be on top of their deck, and then found the give your weapon lifesteal off of the Secret Passage to heal up from 2. Having said that, there was almost no other time where I had the opportunity to play the Tony just because like I was either killing the opponent or they were killing me. So I think Tony is probably bait. I don't even know what matchup that's meant to be for, because slow attrition style games don't really happen, and generally I like drawing cards from my own deck more than my opponent's.
Yeah, I mean, you can only play Tony when you have no other cards to draw, but maybe it's better served as like a Curtis or.
I think Curtis could be a good look, or even Feldrin. I don't think is like naturally running that deck, and I think would probably be better suited because there are times where like I'm just desperate for some Outcast cards. That card is performing quite well in a lot of standard decks and is just a very powerful card. So I think that would probably be and like especially like with the Glaive Tars as one of your primary draw engines to get the quest line completed. I think that not having enough Outcast cards is part of the reason why the deck fails to do its thing as often as it would like to.
All right. Do you guys have any other decks that you guys like to talk about that are kind of utilizing some of the new cards outside of like decks that are just splashing 1 or 2 cards? Because I know like Pirate Rogues are playing Harmonic Mood and things like that, but I'm not really seeing a whole bunch of other cards that are making a big impact.
No, it's a low infect set. Nothing really comes to mind too much from just a quick glance. I mean, Quest Mage is Quest Mage. Like that's sort of maybe not the most powerful thing, but it's definitely like something that you'll remember if you play against it in a gaming in a session. You'll just be like, wow, that was something. So yeah, aside from that one, but maybe I don't want to talk about Quest Mage. You know, that's also part of it.
Yeah. Can I interest you guys in some Posic Copium? I've heard people talking about this card a little bit in Standard. So this is the 4-mana 5/4 that gives your opponent 2 3/3s that cost 3 mana. And then if Posic dies, it summons any that they haven't played onto your side of the board. So it's like a mini Savannah Highmane kind of maybe. But it is a 4-mana 5/4. Maybe playing that in something like the even Death Knight decks, or maybe even something like Even Shaman.
You know, I've been playing a fair amount of Standard, more than I probably ever have, to be honest with you. Like since the Wild, split happened, this is probably the most Standard I've ever played. And yeah, that card is just everywhere. And for seemingly good reason. Every time I encountered it in both formats, it's just like, it's annoying. I hate dealing with it. Sometimes it makes me overdraw a card, and that's annoying. Sometimes, like, I can't, like, I've paced out these turns that don't allow me to play the minions, so they just get a 6/6 after I kill it. So other times I'm just like, well, I can't afford to give them a 6/6, so I just have to let them hit me with a 5/4. Like, yeah, it's an annoying card. I don't know if it matches the pace of play for Wild right now. I could very well see, like, I don't know, an inclusion in something like a fairly aggressive Reno Hunter, which I think is how you want to build a Reno Hunter. That seems like a good place for it, just because it's looking for cards to fill out the deck. Even something like, the similar type of build, or even just like a regular old Frost Death Knight. Like, you're not going to have a whole lot of wild cards that you can include. So aside from Lotheb, you just like play the standard list most of the time, and I could definitely see him included there. I'm not sure that like a deck like Even Shaman probably doesn't want it, just because it wants to do totemy things and is a tight list already. So I think the problem with Posic isn't that he's like not a good card, because he absolutely is. It's just there are a lot of good cards in Wild, so like, what do you cut? What is it? He's just kind of outclassed by some of the previous like sets that we have available. So because we have so many cards available, we don't always get to find room for something like Posic.
Yeah, just really good card in like generic, fairly low synergy aggro decks. Like, so things like Face Hunter, things like Highlander Hunter, things like even Death Knight. But I don't really see it as much in, like even Shaman, right? Like a deck that is much more synergy focused, or, obviously not like Pirate Rogue, things like that. So Hunter in general seems like a good fit when it goes aggro, because, there's not a ton of synergy with what Hunter's doing a lot of the time, excluding Beast Hunter.
Yeah. All right. So I know you said low impact set, but now that we're like 2 weeks past the official release of the set, with the balance change to Twig, how are we feeling in general though? Like, are you enjoying playing Wild? Has the meta, been good to you? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, despite the fact that I've been playing Standard, I've been enjoying Wild quite a bit more as well. I think that maybe that'll be short-lived, and it's just like the contrast between the period that we were in, where it was just extreme Druid Stone. If people start catching on to Questline Druid and it becomes returns to Druid Stone, it might get that feeling back of just like the repetitive nature of it. But I don't know. I feel like this is pretty close to like baseline for what we expect for Wild, right? Like, there's a lot of aggro. There's Druid doing Druid things. People continuing to play Reno, Priest, and Secret Mage, even if they're not super strong. Throw a quest mage into that as well, and then just kind of like mostly the same decks that we've had for a while. The Beast Hunter, Even Shaman, and the Pirate decks that don't feel quite as oppressive as they were before, just because other decks got things too. So I don't know. I'm not super excited about it and anything, but it feels like an improvement, and it feels kind of just like baseline wild. It's just what the format is right now.
Yeah, I think it would have been nice, obviously, if the set came in a little bit hotter. Standard players largely talked about it, and then for me personally, I also feel the same thing in Wild. It's kind of like Roffle says baseline. For me, this is probably, it's probably a bit below. Like, I'll be honest, it's like not my favorite expansion meta that we're having right now. But it's not horrible. It's not like I'm just like dreading every day. I'm just saying, look, it's not my favorite thing, favorite Wild experience currently. But we'll see how it develops. The decks are, a lot of stuff that we've seen for a very long time. And it does seem like, like we have the extreme situation where there's dramatic upheaval, like in Stormwind. But I feel like the past, I don't know, like the past, what is that? Since like Even Shaman came around, like it's been a long time coming. Like Pirate Rogue has now existed like almost the exact same cards for over a year now. Like Beast Hunter, this is the 4th expansion now, where I'm kind of like gearing up. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait for some Beast Hunter, and I enjoy Beast Hunter, but it's just like it's a lot of expansions in a row with the same kind of thing with Shadow Priest and Even Shaman, Beast Hunter, Pirate Rogue, Big Priest is back, Shadow Walk is back. Very samey. And you expect that to happen in Wild, but again, just because the set probably hasn't been as impactful as you would hope, it's probably just a little bit more so. So that sort of fatigue is just kind of building up a little bit.
Yeah, eternal format fatigue, right? Like we the whole point of the format is theoretically those decks are, once you craft that deck, you're able to play it for a long time, and I get that. I respect it. I kind of came into this. I was the one that was like super hyping up the expansion, talking about, oh, there's going to be probably a lot of playable cards that are going to go in a lot of decks, and they might not just like make new decks, but they'll go in. I think I was proven wrong. There have not been a lot of cards that have gone into a lot of decks, so I guess that's the last time I ever hype up an expansion ever again. Gosh, never again. But I don't know. I've enjoyed it, like you said. Like, it hasn't been terrible. I guess once we nerfed Twig, like I've actually enjoyed playing Wild and streaming a lot. And so, yeah, I guess I'm kind of in the same boat of like, yeah, I liked it. I don't hate it, don't love it, but having a lot of fun still. Playing new things at least. Maybe that's because I'm winning, because I'm playing, some variations of Questline, Druid, and Beast Hunter. Maybe that's got a lot to do with it. Maybe I just like winning. But yeah, all right. Let us know down in the comments below how you guys are enjoying the the new expansion, new post-patch meta. But before we head out, we gotta dabble in our weekly Hearthstone drama. So first things first, they have announced a new standard heroic brawl, which usually indicates that a couple weeks after that, we're going to be getting a new mini set. So maybe end of the month. I saw a face from Roffle. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that's usually what the heroic brawls indicate.
No, I just completely forgot that those things had become tied together, which is
it's a sad thing.
Like, yeah, it's dumb that they are. And I had forgotten that, which I guess adds another layer to the drama that I had not really considered.
It's always like 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks after the brawl.
Yeah. Or not always, but it has recently been, at least.
Yeah. Well, so related to that, the heroic brawl is coming May 17th through the 23rd/24th. And so maybe mini set like the first week of June. Maybe keep your eyes out on something like that. But something, to go with the usual complaining about high entrance fee and top-loaded prize payouts and everything like that, getting people to spend their gold right before a mini set. There's a new thing that they've added, a new incentive. And so the first time that you get 12 wins in the heroic brawl, you get a limited hero portrait. And so this is the only way that you're able to get the hero portrait. It's like a pretty sweet looking Death Knight portrait. People love it for the new blood decays. They think it goes very well thematically. People are super hype about the portrait itself. They're not very happy that the only way that you can get it is by getting 12 wins in this limited time heroic brawl that costs 1,000 gold to enter. And so, of course, it's caused a divide on Twitter and Reddit and, in the community. A lot of the pro players are like super happy that they have this incentive to do well. Not like you really needed any incentive to do well in the heroic brawl, because you get a buttload of money in packs and gold cards, but and it's also great content. And a lot of the more, I don't want to call them casual community, but a lot of the people that are not going to be consistently getting 12 wins super easily are kind of pissed that Blizzard is pushing this. And so I guess just take a little bit of time for you guys to kind of air your grievances, or maybe not, and kind of, talk about the situation.
Okay. I don't know. I'm conflicted about this because it's a really cool looking skin. First of all, I don't really care much about cosmetics though, but like this one is sweet. I played a Blood Death Knight in WoW, so like having that aesthetic is appealing to me. And this is especially with like a fairly limited number of Death Knight skins available right now. You don't really have, necessarily great options if you are really into skins. So that's a bummer. I think the thing that bothers me the most probably is like the time gating of an exclusive reward like this. If Heroic Brawliseum or just like heroic or regular Brawliseums were a more permanent facet of Hearthstone, and you could just like at a point where you have a surplus of gold, queue this up and potentially get the skin. I think that would mostly be fine. But like the urgency that it kind of introduces is a little scummy, and not something that I'm like a super big fan of. But at the end of the day, like cosmetics don't help you win games. I feel for the people that collect them, but like I don't think that for me personally, cosmetics are worth spending real money, and never have been. So I don't think it's a good use of money to buy a cosmetic or like a skin for $10 to begin with. I definitely don't think it's worth it to spend $10 on a Brawliseum run for a very low chance at getting the skin. So if you weren't considering doing the Brawliseum before, and then the skin entices you, I would say maybe like double or rethink that, because like the Brawliseum is really bad EV to begin with. You probably almost certainly shouldn't be participating in it, even if you have like a surplus of gold with an expansion on the line. Like really what it comes down to is I advocate that people try not to spend money on Hearthstone in any capacity and find a way to enjoy the game without spending money if they can. And if they, if they feel as though they're going to enjoy the game more if they spend a little bit of money, then absolutely do that. But like, I think that there are a lot of ways. I've done so myself for a significant portion of my time. I think there are a lot of ways to enjoy Hearthstone without spending money, and especially spending money on things that are really bad value, like the Heroic Brawliseum. So, I don't know. I understand why people are mad. I think that, as usual, things kind of get like blown a little bit out of proportion, just because like there becomes this like, I don't know, self-perpetuating machine of rage that happens when you like see other people agreeing with your anger on the internet. It just kind of amplifies that into it's sort of an unhealthy place, and I think some of that is going on. But like it still is. It is not a player-friendly decision. Is really what it comes down to, and like I think we can criticize Blizzard for that without, losing our minds.
Yeah, the implementation of like I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like skill-based rewards, or like benefits for doing well. That seems like something that's good and that they should do more of. But implementing in this specific way, Probably not. Probably don't want to do it the way they're doing it with the time gating and, just the massive gambling aspect. Like, even if you are really good at the game, like, not everyone that's been rank 1 legend or whatever queues up and gets 12 heroic wins, like, in their first 5-10 runs. Like, there's a little bit of, like, fair amount of randomness to it. Sometimes in your first 5 games that you play, you do get 5 people who are just, like, stumbled in there from the inn, no idea, blind as hell with their basic cards. And then sometimes you match up against like other high legend people in your first 5. So it's very random a lot of time. And because there is so much uncertainty and there is so much gold sink, it is going to be, a bit annoying for people that are determined to kind of get this. At the same time, it does make me wonder, like, whether people who are collectors and stuff, if there was hypothetically like I don't know, like a rank 1 legend portrait. For a lot of people, that is similarly unattainable. So even if it isn't time gated, right? Like, if there was a rank 1 legend portrait for a lot of the people that are collectors, they still don't have a chance of getting that. So in terms of introducing like exclusive skill-based cosmetics and things like that, I'm not exactly sure where the line is that people would want. Is it always like, are people always going to be mad if there is a change and we are deviating from something that you can always attain by paying versus things that you can get by, doing well in the game? My opinion is people are always going to be mad because there's been an established way of doing this for a very long time. Does that mean that this is the best way to do it just because it's always been done for 10 years that you always just pay over for the skin? No, not necessarily. So at the same time, yep, I feel bad for people that have thought that this is going to be the way it always worked. I think that the implementation of this specific one isn't very good, but I also don't think that any change wouldn't have been met with rage because people get angry. So yeah. I hope they rethink how they do this, but yeah, it's hard. You can't please everyone when you're fundamentally changing, when you're fundamentally changing anything, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that last point is a good one. That like change is always going to upset some people.
Yeah, I do agree with that. When I saw this news and like saw the commotion, I was very much on the fence because like I think I've been very public of like I want people to have an incentive to try to hit high ranks and things like that, right? Whether it's in standard or in wild. And like one of the things that was always floated out was like a portrait or a card back for being top 100 at the end of a month or something like that. And so this was kind of along the lines of that. I am very much in agreement with you guys of like the way that they implemented this very specific one attached to the heroic Brawliseum was not a very smart move because I like competitive aspects of Hearthstone. I really dislike the heroic Brawliseums just kind of in general. Like they're great stream content and things like that, and they're a lot of fun. But like I also, you were talking about being a good player and it's still a lot of like luck based. I consider myself a decent player of the game, and it took me like 14 runs to get a 12 win run the last time that the Wild Heroic Brawliseum, and that's in the format that I play. And so like I feel really bad of people who like Hearthstone is a collectible card game. They want to be able to collect everything. I understand that, and I feel bad of like the people who just like might not be able to get that. I don't know. Because like in Magic, they do the same thing where like if you qualify for like the Pro Tour, basically like the World Championship or something like that, you get a promotional card that you can keep or you can sell, and that is how the collectors that are diehard get access to those things that they can't really qualify for. And there's still like an avenue for them to get that. There's not really a way to do that right now with these like skill based collectibles that they seem to be introducing. And so I don't know how you alleviate the change, but I'm not going to lie to you. I might piss some people off with the statement. I'm glad that they're making this change and they're introducing like skill-based rewards to incentivize people to play the game, right? Because it's been a problem in Wild. People like get Legend and then camp. And so like whether it's in Standard or Wild, like I want people to be incentivized to play the game and do things, try to hit rank 1 Legend. I just disagree with the way that they implemented this specific one.
Yeah. Right. Like there are a few things that like make this particularly bad, I think, especially as an introduction to this type of thing, which kind of sours any potential future changes. First of all, like with a game like Hearthstone where there is a lot of variance, the drop off in rewards from like 11 wins, 10 wins to 12 wins was already sharp enough. Like realistically, like in terms of the deck that you built, the way that you played, there's such a marginal difference between getting 11 wins and getting 12 wins, or getting 10 wins and getting 12 wins. Like a lot of those things could be outside of your control. So it feels bad to like amplify what is already a way too top heavy reward structure for the Brawliseum. And then on top of that, like again, the time gating and the sense of urgency involved in like you can only get the skin now. I mean, it's a sales tactic. Like it's an effective sales tactic. It will get people that wouldn't play the heroic Brawliseum to play it because of again that sense of urgency. And I think like in any context, for me personally, I feel that like that manufactured sense of urgency is just kind of shady and doesn't feel good. Like it's not consumer friendly, and as a consumer, I don't like it. So like it's I don't.
It reeks of mobile game. Like that's what all the gotchas do. Like it reeks of that, and like you said, it's a good sales tactic. I completely understand why they're doing it. I just thought that they wouldn't do it that way.
Yeah, like there are other ways they can get $10 from people or whatever for $20 and still like actually deliver so like a guaranteed product. So yeah, there are quite a few aspects of this that like are uniquely bad, but hopefully I'm not opposed to skill based like cosmetics or new incentives for playing competitively. I just hope that they would be implemented a little bit differently, and rather than in what is already a very unpopular game mode.
Yeah, the number that I remember being floated was like 0.65% of brawls will get 12 wins. So that's not many. Like even if you just like cut out the people that are obviously queuing up basic decks, like there's not that much wiggle room even among the competitive, like highly competitive people.
Yeah, I don't know. If they had revealed this in the blog that they did this, and they said just 12 wins in general, like 12 wins total in the heroic brawl, do you think there would have been as much public backlash that we would have seen as we did?
No, because that's so different in terms of how attainable it is, especially for players that are like, investing a ton in the game financially, because those players can queue up. Look, they're going to queue up 10, 12 brawls no matter how many it takes, and they will get it.
Yeah,
they do not get 12 wins guaranteed. Like you cannot just like pay your way through to do that.
Yeah, there's like, I don't know, there's the expectation that even if it takes a while, they still eventually will get it. So there's like a certainty in I will have the skin at the end of this transaction. I think it's still a really, like, again, I don't spend money for any skin. Like I wouldn't spend like, $50 worth of heroic brawl runs for this skin. So I wouldn't do it. But like at least they have a rough estimate of what it's going to cost them to get this skin. And I think people probably still would be upset just because like people, I don't know, it seems so weird that they're doing this after they already like tried this with 3 wins. People pushed back really hard on that, so they did have to change it to like 3 cumulative wins across runs. And then they're doing it again, but like more unattainable. Yeah, like
way more brutal.
I feel like are they surprised that the people are mad when people were mad last time with like a much tamer version of this?
Yeah, like where are the lessons that are being learned? That's what it feels like.
Maybe that was just a warm up. Maybe that was like getting us, feet slowly close to the fire, and then now they're just kind of letting it all go.
I mean, it does kind of seem like that, right?
Yeah. But no, you just nailed it, saying the uncertainty, right? Because it's not just the time gating, it's not just the actual cash and the gold, it's the gambling, right? Like it's a big gamble as well, and you don't know what you're gonna get, and that makes it the first real clear departure when it comes to a cosmetic like this. Is that you're not just like, it's not the exact same as like a loot box, but it's kind of like a loot box a little bit, where it's like you have a chance of doing this and you don't really know what you're going to get, and that's a bit different for this type of thing.
I mean, the Brawliseum was already gambling. You're just amplifying the like the jackpot reward.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's pretty clear where the three of us kind of stand on this issue. I can't believe they're doing this for the heroic brawl, like of all things. It feels bad. If you guys are listening, make sure you at least save the 3,000 gold or whatever it is, and so you can buy the mini set if you are going to attempt to do this. I don't want anybody going bankrupt trying to get the skin and then not being able to afford the mini set. Please don't do that.
Just don't do the heroic Brawlicium. The skin is cool, but like it doesn't help you win games. It's not going to be that much. Like it's not going to make you enjoy Hearthstone more to have a shiny skin. That very few
I will
people
say
have.
for some people it might. Right, like I know a lot of people that like they love the skins and the cosmetics and the voice. Like I understand that, and like it might make them enjoy more. It's spending 10,000 gold in order to make that is probably not going to make you enjoy it. More.
Is it going to make you enjoy Hearthstone more than being able to pre-order the next expansion? Like
that's the question.
No, probably not. So whether you have the spare money or not, like maybe just hold off and have some cards from the next set, whether you're using money or gold to do so.
Yeah, maybe that's how you.
If they had had a portrait like this, and they're like next brawl, if you get 12 wins, you get the new portrait and this one. Where like it eventually unlocks the first time you get 12 wins in a heroic. Do you think that would be remotely differently in how it's being received, or because then it takes away the time gating aspect as well a little bit?
It would improve it for sure, but like again, as we saw, I feel like the 3 wins one was pretty tame. Like most people can reasonably expect to get 3 wins in a brawl. So I think that showed us that people would still probably
people were still pissed, right? Yeah.
People would still because like 12 wins is pretty difficult. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I've gotten 12 wins. I know I've gotten 11 multiple times, but I don't do the brawl a whole lot because again, really poor EV. So I just I maybe do 1 per cycle. I almost certainly won't do this one, and then I move on if I because it's just like it's not good value on your gold or your money.
All right, well, kind of lame controversy that we had to talk about, but I think it's like it's so self-inflicted controversy too. Like it feels like they didn't learn their lesson from the 3 wins thing, but yeah, a little bit of downer to end the episode on, but yeah, you know where we stand. Let us know down in the comments how you guys feel about this whole conversation. Where you stand. I'm actually interested on where the community stands on whether they want skill-based rewards or not. Like I think we all agree that this is a really shitty way of doing it, but just in general, whether they want like the idea. I'm interested in see what people think about that. So let us know down in the comments below. And speaking of thanks, Corb and Roffle, thanks again for joining week after week. Appreciate you guys. Let the people know where they can find you guys and your content.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RoffleHS and Twitch and YouTube at Roffle.
And you can always find me Corbett at twitch.tv or Corbettgames on YouTube and Twitter.
And you can also find him co-hosting the Vicious Syndicate podcast on I'm assuming it's just audio, all the platforms and stuff like that. When you start hosting this week?
The first episode will be this week. We'll be recording Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, excited to hear that. If you guys are interested in any of the deck lists that we talked about today, we talked about a lot of different decks, talked a lot of different stuff in the meta. I know Corb and I post a bunch of deck lists in our Discord, update them fairly frequently. So if you're interested in any of those, there are links to the Discords down below. And yeah, thanks again for listening all the way to the end. We appreciate all of you guys that do. And we will see you guys again next week. Later.